representing 21 times last year's revenue. Align, the maker of Invisalign, is trading around 7 times last year's revenue, about a third of the multiple. While high-growth startups tend to trade at a premium to their incumbent counterparts, investors today are indicating that the premium should be a little lower in this case, guys.
All right, Leslie, thank you very much. Golden State Warriors power forward Draymond Green is an early investor in Smile Direct Club. He's also a customer of it. He's also a 3-time NBA champ who just recently signed a $100 million contract extension with the Warriors. Draymond is with us today from New York. Draymond, welcome. Good to have you with us.
Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
And I have to say, you do have a lovely smile.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And you must be, we've been talking about how the IPO debut did not go maybe as well as some had anticipated. But you were an early stage investor, and you've made some money today, right?
Yeah, I have. But I think, with the way that I've been with this company and the relationship that I have with the company it isn't about just making money today. I feel that, I'm a part of this company and I've been in it since the beginning. And, it's about the long-term success that, I'm betting on and that, I look forward to, not necessarily just about making money today.
We had on a couple of months ago in association with his book, your former teammate, Andre Iguodala. And it occurred to all of us that there seems to be a culture on the Warriors of guys who have gotten entree into Silicon Valley, maybe met some venture capitalists, and are, let's just say, active investors, maybe more active than players on other teams. Do you think that the proximity to Silicon Valley and the VC world and all of that in San Francisco has helped you become a better, more active investor than you otherwise might have been?
Absolutely. I spent a lot of time with some great mentors, Shamath Palihapitiya and Sky Dayton, Bill Gurley, Bill Lee, Jason Calcanis, all those guys, who David Sachs, who are at the top of the top. And, spending the time around those guys that I do, you can't help but to learn. And, I enjoy being in the room with them and just really learning more about the business. It's a great place to invest your money, and it's a great place to continue to learn, and more importantly, to help change the world. And, that's what I have interest in, and it's been really good to me.
You got big money goals, Dre. I mean, you want to be a billionaire by the time you're 40, and you've got more than a decade to go on that. You're also the founder of an accelerator group, 100K Ventures, and I'm just curious, how do you think about investments? For instance, taking Smile Direct is just an example. Did you use the product, think, hey, this seems like a great product, let me find out more about it, or did they come to you? I mean, how did that become an investment for you?
Well, Alex Finkel was a close friend of mine, so I was actually in the marketplace about to get braces or something, and a close friend of ours, Danny Silverman, was like, well, Finkel's starting this company, and, you should try it. And so once I tried it, very successful, had great results, and it's like, wow, this is an amazing product. And so Danny and I kind of was talking Finkel into letting us invest into the company, and finally we got him to give us an allotment and invest in the company. But, for me, when there's something that I can have a direct impact on, or, I can use the product and see how well it performs, it definitely gives me more incentive to want to invest my money in those types of companies.
Did you make money on Smile Direct? Because it's down about 20% on the open here.
Yes, I did. And, like I said it before, it's not necessarily about what the stock trades at today. I'm not selling my interest in Smile Direct. I'm betting on this company long term, have a great management team. And I know David Kassman and the rest of the management team will use today to light a fire back up under everybody in the company and continue to take this company to new heights as they've done over the last 5 years.
Let's switch a little bit to talk a little more about the business of basketball and the league more generally. In California yesterday, a bill, I think, was passed to allow college athletes to get compensation for the use of their likeness or for endorsements or presumably for public appearances. How do you feel about that?
I think that's a great step in the right direction. For so many years, myself included, made these universities a ton of money, and you don't profit off it at all. You get if you're eligible, you get a Pell Grant, and you get a few dollars for food. and that's about it. Yet, some of these colleges are bringing in $2 and $3 million a game just off the gate, and the athletes aren't able to profit off that at all. So I think this is a great step in the right direction. I'm extremely excited about it and excited for the kids of the future to be able to profit off their likeness the way they should be able to.
Yeah, I have to say, not that it matters, that I'm inclined to agree with you. I remember the O'Bannon case where his likeness was used on I believe it was a video game, and he, of course, got no compensation for that because it was forbidden under the rules, and that seemed like, the colleges sell a lot of jerseys. Somebody's making a lot of money with jerseys with names and likenesses and so on and so forth. Let's talk about the NBA. I don't know that it's ever been healthier, and yet there are some people who worry about the idea that there are 5 or 6 super teams, of which the Warriors have been one and may continue to be, but 25 teams that really aren't competitive enough. What do you think about that?
I think it's kind of that way in any sport. If you look at the NBA, the NFL, any other sport, there's usually maybe 3 to 4 teams a year really competing for a championship. And that's just the nature of the sports that we play. I think, we've definitely had a great run, and I don't think our run is over, but there's also some other teams that's trying to put it together. However, I think, the NBA is probably in the best place that it's ever been as a league. Adam Silver is doing an amazing job, and, all the teams are doing a great job and, taking this game and making it a global game. And so there's no complaints from our way. If people feel that teams aren't good enough or can't compete, that's on that particular team. We all have the same salary cap. We abide by the same rules. It's on you what you decide to go do with that.
Draymond, what about people who say you guys are going to have a white elephant stadium there? You're past your prime. Come on, pump us up about the Warriors this year.
Oh, there's not much pumping up need to be done. We still have a great cast. With obviously Steph Curry leading the charge. We're bringing D'Angelo Russell on. A lot of young talent coming on. Willie Cauley-Stein. I plan on, trying to play at the best of my ability this year, and then also obviously with Clay coming back around February, no one's going to want to play us in the playoffs, that's for sure.
No, and one of the things that's very interesting, we've remarked on this in the past, the anticipation for this season is really very high. And one of the things that I think the NBA has done well, as the NFL has, is to make the league a year-round conversation topic. It's partly the summer league, it's partly the draft, and so on and so forth. But the player movement this year has been really significant and has people talking.
It has a lot of people talking, and obviously that's a huge and large credit to LeBron James, with what he's done in his career that's kind of shown everybody else the power that you have as a player. And that's why you saw the movement this year, is because the basketball players have taken control of their own future. We've taken control of our destiny. And I think a lot of people hate that, but I think that's one of, everybody celebrates LeBron for, his basketball career and the things he's been able to accomplish. I think the doors that he's opened for athletes and especially basketball players is his biggest accomplishment.
What's the deal with Carmelo? Why isn't anybody picking him up?
Not sure. I'm not in the front office. Obviously, I think Carmelo is a great player who's had a great career and looks as if he still has a lot left in the tank. You never know what's going to happen, whether he'll get picked up before the season or not. Obviously, as a player, as someone who's won a gold medal with Melo, definitely want to see him in the league and, getting what he deserves. He's given so much to this league and so many great moments. I think it's kind of crazy that he's not on an NBA roster, because there's a lot of players that he's better than, that's for sure.
USA team that lost yesterday to France could have used him potentially. Let me ask you about the Olympics next year. Do you hope to play, and do you think that a lot of the NBA stars who sat out this year's tournament will play in Tokyo?
I do hope to play, and I think a lot of guys will want to play. This schedule this year was a little treacherous with the games that was in America and also the travel to Australia, which is why I think a lot of guys dropped out a long ways to China. It was just a lot, and it's also it leads up right into the season. You know, those guys will be coming back within the next couple of days, and we'll be 2 weeks away from training camp. So I think you'll see a lot of guys participate next year in the Olympics, and I hope to be one of those 12 guys.
Well, I would put my money on you, Draymond. Thank you very much for being with us. You guys have a really tough division this year. Good luck.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
Draymond Green.
And speaking of IPOs, Uber fighting back as California passes a new set of labor rules for the gig economy. How will ride-sharing companies navigate the bumpy legal road ahead? Power Lunch is back right after this.
This CNBC program.
Casa Bacardi is back, bringing a party with an unmissable lineup and tasty rum cocktails to London. With Bacardi's new Sound of Rum crew, featuring live sets from One Asen and P Money, MCing from Harry Pinero, and loads more. The perfect recipe for an epic night out. Casa Bacardi at Box Park Croydon on September 14th. For more info and to get your tickets now, head to boxpark.co.uk. Do what moves you. Over 18s only. Drink aware for the facts.
1 in 4 children believe potatoes grow on trees. 1 in 5 children believe fish fingers are made from chicken. And 1 in 8 adults believe the moon landings didn't happen. People believe all sorts of strange things. Some people believe that insurance companies try to avoid paying claims. But last year, Zurich paid 99% of insurance claims made by their UK customers. Zurich, an insurance company you can believe in. To find out more, visit zurich.co.uk/99.
This one shouldn't take long. Of course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there. And then they'd have chained the back wheel. It would have taken me much longer, especially if the chain's off the ground. Makes it harder to cut. This one doesn't even have a lock on the front. So, in the time I've been talking to you, I've nicked it.
Over 9,000 scooters and motorbikes were stolen in London last year. Lock your bike, chain the rear wheel, and cover it to make it harder to steal. Lock, chain, cover. The Met Police. First world problem number 346.
Well, you know, people might think I'm exaggerating, but since Virgin Atlantic announced their sale, I can't sleep. 1 minute my head is in New York, the next I'm searching for shows in Vegas. I can't stop. So many choices. South Africa, the Caribbean, California. My search history is a total mess. Oh, I might need to bring it up with my life coach.
Seriously? Get a flight. Bing bong. The Virgin Atlantic sale is now on. Visit virginatlantic.com and fly direct from London.
Ooh, you look so pale and jaded.
Walls need warming up for autumn. Get to B&Q. Good Home 5-litre standard coloured emulsion is just £18. With our wide range of contemporary colours, you're bound to find the perfect shade to make your home feel snug. You can do it when you B&Q it.
If you can drive a van that's built in Britain, with class-leading fuel economy on every run, to Middlesex to do some masonry, or to Tunbridge, carrying well over a ton. Yours is the all-new Vauxhall Vivaro, and you'll be driving a great Brit van, my son. All-new Vauxhall Vivaro carries British business. To find out more, search New Vauxhall Vivaro.
Uber is fighting back after California passed a bill designed to redefine the so-called gig economy. Deirdre Bosa is in San Francisco with how they're planning to do that. Deirdre?
Kelly, Uber wasting no time reminding us that the passage of the bill is no magic wand changing everybody's status to employees. That's how Chief Legal Officer Tony West put it on a call to reporters yesterday just after that bill passed the Assembly. He also outlined Uber's strategy going forward as the bill does get closer to reality and ride-sharing still doesn't have its exemption. Now, Uber will go back to an argument that it has used plenty in the past, but one that we haven't heard a lot of since Dara Khosrowshahi took over about 2 years ago. That is that Uber is a technology platform, not a transportation company. West said on that call yesterday that, quote, drivers' work is outside the usual course of Uber's business, which is serving as a technology platform, suggesting, some have said, that drivers aren't core to the business, and that may be a wise legal move in the case of AB5 and how it's going to fight this battle going forward. But that is an argument that is unlikely to go over well with the actual drivers, of course, the most important part of that platform. Lyft, on the other hand, it may be interesting to note, is facing the same challenge to his business, but has certainly kept more mum since that ruling yesterday. Kelly?
All right, Deirdre, thank you very much. Deirdre Bosa.
All righty. Aurora Cannabis getting crushed today after its earnings report. Could a crackdown on vaping mean more pain ahead for the pot stock? We will ask the Aurora chairman, Michael Singer, right after this quick break.
I don't know what's going on. I've done all sorts of research, read.
Casa Bacardi is back, bringing a party with an unmissable lineup and tasty rum cocktails to London. With Bacardi's new Sound of Rum crew, featuring live sets from One Nation and P Money, MCing from Harry Pinero, and loads more. The perfect recipe for an epic night out. Casa Bacardi at Box Park Croydon on September 14th. For more info and to get your tickets now, head to boxpark.co.uk. Do what moves you. Over 18s only. Drink aware for the facts.
This one shouldn't take long. Of course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there. And then they'd have chained the back wheel. It would have taken me much longer, especially if the chain's off the ground. Makes it harder to cut. This one doesn't even have a lock on the front. So, in the time I've been talking to you, I've nicked it.
Over 9,000 scooters and motorbikes were stolen in London last year. Lock your bike, chain the rear wheel, and cover it to make it harder to steal. Lock, chain, cover. The Met Police.
1 in 2 people believe they should check their work email on holiday. 1 in 3 believe it's okay to eat a colleague's lunch. And 1 in 14 believe it's okay to steal loo roll from work. People believe all sorts of strange things. Some people believe that insurance companies try to avoid paying claims. But last year, Zurich paid 99% of insurance claims made by their UK customers. Zurich, an insurance company you can believe in. To find out more, visit zurich.co.uk/99.
Summer wardrobe weather struggles? Introducing convertible wellies. 1 minute they're Wellington boots, the next flip-flops.
Convertible wellies, never going to happen, is it? But with the new BP Me Rewards card, getting more of the summer essentials you love more often will. Search BP Me Rewards to find out more.
First world problem number 346.
Well, you know, people might think I'm exaggerating, but since Virgin Atlantic announced their sale, I can't sleep. 1 minute my head is in New York, the next I'm searching for shows in Vegas. I can't stop. So many choices. South Africa, the Caribbean, California. My search history is a total mess. Oh, I might need to bring it up with my life coach.
Seriously? Get a flight. Bing bong. The Virgin Atlantic sale is now on. Visit virginatlantic.com and fly direct from London. Should we go halves?
I'll get this. Let me just get my card. Which was in my pocket.
You can't control awkward first dates. But if you temporarily misplace your Visa debit card, you can freeze and unfreeze it on our mobile banking app. Feel in control every day. Lloyds Bank, by your side. You can only freeze some transaction types. T's and C's apply.
Day for the markets on our hands may not seem like it, but the S&P 500 is just less than 1/3% away from an all-time high here. 3019 is a level of 0.6%. The Dow Industrials, meantime, up 150 points or 0.5%. The Nasdaq is higher by 0.7%. We'll have much more on the markets and more on Power Lunch. Stay with us.
I believe ETFs are a great way to invest in the market.
Ooh, you look so pale and jaded.
Walls need warming up for autumn. Get to B&Q. Good Home 5-litre standard coloured emulsion is just £18. With our wide range of contemporary colours, you're bound to find the perfect shade to make your home feel snug. You can do it when you B&Q it.
What's that, Britain? You want unlimited data? Oh, you want more. You want it on the unstoppable, unbeaten, unrivaled #1 network? Well, who says you can't? Get unlimited data on EE today, the UK's unrivaled #1 network.
Unlimited data, personal use only. Terms apply. Root metrics comparison of 4 mobile networks H2 2013 to H1 2019. See ee.co.uk.
One stage, one night,
10 candidates.
Over the economic and
have this campaign litigated on who supports civil rights.
With the field cut in half, round 3 of the Democratic debates goes down tonight in Houston. Biden, Bernie, or Warren take the lead, while the remaining contenders reassert themselves in the race. Don't miss a minute of the action with live wall-to-wall coverage from ABC News on TuneIn.
America does not want to witness a food fight. They want to know how we're going to put food on their table.
Set your alarm for tonight, 7 Eastern, and search debate to listen.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the 9, but he stays on his feet to score.
What's happening in college football this week? This Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, Will Muschamp will look to upend his former mentor and boss, Nick Saban, as the South Carolina Gamecocks will look to upset the Crimson Tide of Alabama. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
Get social with TuneIn. Follow TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest and greatest audio happenings across the app. Explore exclusive content.
It's called Indie.
Learn about the hottest new podcasts.
The Nostalgia Mixtape, a new podcast hosted by yours truly, Savannah Shroudy.
And get alerted when the big game's about to begin.
This Sunday is Championship Sunday, when we'll find out which 2 teams are going to play for the Lombardi Trophy.
Add TuneIn to your feed and be in the know when it matters most.
Aurora Cannabis falling today after missing its revenue expectations despite trimming its own forecast just a few weeks ago. The pot company also pushing back its profitability target to 2020. The stock has been under pressure this year, down 50% from its 52-week highs. Joining us now is Michael Singer, the executive chairman at Aurora Cannabis. Michael, great to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
What's Wall Street missing?
I don't know. If we think back about what we just delivered, we delivered $99 million net revenue for the quarter, and that's significant. I think where we missed is we provided guidance of between 100 and 107, and I think our ancillary business is where we fell short. And it wasn't because that business isn't generating revenue. They generated a lot of revenue for us, for Aurora. So on a consolidated basis, that gets backed out. And that's not a significant part, obviously, of our revenue. What is significant, however, is our cannabis revenues. We delivered at the top end of the range that we guided at $95 million, and that is the biggest posted number right now in our sector. And we're very excited and proud, obviously, to show that 61% growth quarter over quarter. In addition to that, we delivered some very important key performance indicators that indicate our company continues to grow at an alarming rate. Our gross margins are up close to 60%, and again, that is far exceeding any of our peers. Our cash cost per gram, to produce has fallen another 20% to $1.14, and even as much as $1 at our Sky facility, and that continues to drive real, future margins in our business. Our patient numbers are up, so we're very excited about obviously how we see the future based on how we're tracking quarter over quarter.
All right, so I asked you the question: what is Wall Street missing? What is concerned about? Since you can't identify it, I'm going to go right to the heart of the matter, and that is there's a concern about the need for a capital raise, Michael. Stifel put it the most bluntly, I think, out of all the Wall Street research I've read so far. We believe Aurora will have to come to the capital markets by calendar year first quarter 20 for a significant ask to fund the aggressive growth agenda. What can you tell us about your cash needs going into next year?
So we certainly haven't made that decision that we need to raise a material financing in the early part of 2020. We have a strong cash position at year end. Subsequent to year end, we upsized our debt facility by another $160 million to $360 million. We have not drawn fully on that facility. We also sold what was a strategic investment initially in TGOD, our 29 million shares. That also put on a non-dilutive basis $86 million gross on our balance sheet. So we think, coupled with our year-ending cash plus the cash that we put in the bank subsequent to year end, that we're in a very good position to continue to execute on our strategy. We're obviously, I think our cash needs are more driven towards our CapEx requirements.
Sure.
But we have the ability to ramp our capital needs as we see market demand. So, if we see market demand increase, of course, we're going to accelerate some of our capital needs, or CapEx requirements, and obviously that need to raise or to inject capital in that part of our business. And so we will do that in a very careful and thoughtful way so that we don't put ourselves in a position where we have to raise material money in order to continue to fund our business.
Let me underscore that what you said in the first part of that answer, and that is you have not decided whether to go back to the markets and ask for more money. That's still on the table.
Look, at some point, in the future, as we continue to grow our business internationally, we believe there may be a need for future capital because we're going to need to continue to expand, build facilities elsewhere around the world. So that is a future, idea for us. So that there's at some point we believe that may be true. I don't think we have the need to do so today, and obviously we're planning to continue to grow our business with the existing capital that we have.
Let me focus in on the back half of the year, particularly in Canada, when edibles and vaping become legal. They become new products for you to sell, to distribute, etc. Won't you have to ramp up spending going into those launches, those legalizations towards the end of the year? And can you tell us about your need to spend on CapEx? Because it already seems like your SG&A is going to go up fairly significantly, as I read on the conference call transcript, to 9% from 1% last quarter.
So yeah, we've already started investing in the sales and marketing efforts that we're going to need to launch our derivative products. We're very excited. We're already preparing for that. We're already we're already producing the products that we're going to launch later this year. One important point to note is, why we think this is going to be very profitable for the business is we're trending very well in the consumer market in Canada. We're number one in some of the key provinces of Ontario, Quebec, in BC, and we're number 2 in Alberta, and so on. So, and we believe there needs to be a greater rollout of retail outlets, what looks like, and we're encouraged because that seems to be happening. So with those things playing out and the launch of our derivative, which are higher margin products, we're very confident that we're going to have the right or the ability to generate in the second half of our fiscal year some significant revenues relative to those new form factors coming out. And so that's where we're really focused on. We're investing in that infrastructure today to ensure that we have what we need to deliver some real, some real sales numbers in the second half of our fiscal year.
I need a 30-second answer. How worried are you about the health concerns that have blossomed up around vaping most recently?
So personally, I'm very worried about what I'm reading in the U.S. In Canada, it's very different, and we're obviously, we're heavily regulated by Health Canada, which is a good thing. We work closely with Health Canada to ensure we're going to meet or exceed the Health Canada requirements. When it comes to vaping or vaping products that we're going to be launching, we're going to be testing every one of our products to a rigorous standard to ensure that the products we offer to consumers are safe. And we feel comfortable that we're not in any way, putting at risk our customers and our patients with regards to our new derivative products.
Michael, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Michael Singer, Aurora's chairman.
I'll be watching the 10-year. For the rest of the day into tomorrow,
Absolutely.
the yield
It has really come up.
went up to 179 in the last hour or so.
What a change.
And the S&P back over 3,000.
Thanks for watching Tower.
Closing bell right now.
Welcome to the Closing Bell. I'm Morgan Brennan, in for Sarah Eisen on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, where, at least today, momentum is back. We are just inches from a new all-time closing high. Will the market make history in the next 59 minutes?
You've got a lot of notes there, Morgan. I'm looking forward to a super well-prepped co-anchor.
It's going to be a big show.
Good afternoon to you. Let's look at what's driving the action. Trade optimism as both the US and China have extended an olive branch each in the form of soybean purchases and tariff delays, but it's been a whipsaw session as conflicting headlines from the White House injects volatility into stocks. And we've got a new stimulus plan and a rate cut from the ECB ahead of the Fed's meeting next week. Joining us for the full hour, Stephanie Link from Nuveen, a TIAA company. We are up 139 points on the Dow. The high of the session was up 170. Stephanie, continuing a good theme week. The content, the sector-wise below that is slightly different, though, today compared to the start of the week.
Yeah, we had a big value rotation on Monday and Tuesday, and then a little bit yesterday, and giving it up a little bit today. And that is, I think, because we did get that ECB news on the monetary policy, which basically was in line, but very accommodative for a very long time. But then rates actually rallied because I think it was because of the U.S. data. I mean, the core CPI is the highest in this session, so that's pretty important. And I think that also the initial claim story remains very strong as well. So, I mean, I think you have a rotation today, but I think next week, if we get less accommodative, less dovish Fed, then we're actually going to rally back into value. That's my expectation.
When you say less accommodative, less dovish Fed, do you mean that a rate cut is not a foregone conclusion, or do you mean the commentary after?
No, I think it's 25 basis points. I think they kind of have to, but I think that the commentary will be, hey, the data is not that bad. And we have 30 central bankers around the world that are being accommodated, and eventually that's going to lead to better growth. That's my expectation.
We've got lots to discuss with Stephanie throughout the first hour of the show. Let's focus in, though, first of all, on the big stories we're watching. Kayla Tausche is the latest on trade as new headlines send the market on a wild ride today. Bob Pisani has more on those market moves. Steve Leisman has the details on the ECB's rate decision, and Morgan is covering comments from a number of leaders in the industrial space. But Kayla, let's start with you.
Wilfred, the White House says there is absolutely no interim deal with China, and to be sure, there is no deal at this moment. But sources who are close to the talks tell me that there is a nascent detente happening behind the scenes, that there's a mutual desire for de-escalation by both the U.S. and China. For China, they want to get licenses for Huawei to do more business with the U.S., and they also need to restore access to the U.S. pork market, with Chinese hogs now inflicted by a breakout of the African swine fever. So they need U.S. pork, and they could be making those purchases in the coming weeks. On the U.S. side, U.S. officials want to avoid any self-inflicted wound into the American economy going into the election next year. I'm told that Ambassador Lighthizer, the Treasury Secretary, and NEC Director Kudlow all feel that keeping tariffs on $250 billion in Chinese goods is a sustainable status quo going into the election, even as these negotiations drag out on the tougher, more structural issues that are at the heart of why this trade war started in the first place. But that getting back to that $250 billion level, so rolling back some of the tariffs that were put in place a couple weeks ago and avoiding those pre-Christmas tariffs is key for those officials. Whether or not the mid-level talks that are happening in a couple weeks' time or the principal talks that are expected to happen in October can get there remains to be seen. There are a lot of news cycles to get through. There are a lot of things that have to happen, but at least there is that desire, Wilf and Morgan, and that's what's moving the market today.
Yeah, that tone definitely key to the market today. It sounds like you're going to be staying very busy for the foreseeable future, Kayla. Thank you. The Dow is on track for its 7th straight day of gains and closing in on record highs. Bob Pisani has more from the floor of the exchange on all of this. Bob.
And we are up, but it's a different market today than the last few days. So what's back is sort of the old momentum names, some of those fintech names like PayPal and MasterCard and Visa. They're moving. Some tech names like the semiconductors, they're back again, like Advanced Micro. And some of those old consumer staple stocks, they were momentum stocks too. Kimberly-Clark, they're big. What's not moving is the stuff that was moving in the last week or so. All those defensive names, energy and retail and industrial stocks. And banks are kind of flat as well. They had a great run overall. But still, the rotation's still moving very well. Just want to highlight 30.27 is the old intraday high for the S&P 500. We're 10 points away from that. That was back in July. 30.25 was the close. That also was the end of July. Guys, back to you.
Bob, we've also just got an intraday S&P 500 chart for you to talk to, if you don't mind. What happened this morning? Well, we're all over the place.
Yeah, we're going up and down based on bond yields, and that's what moved things. Last week, we bottomed on bond yields on Wednesday. Thursday morning, as yields started lifting, the market started lifting. This morning, we went up and down, depending on some of the economic numbers and some of the discussions going back and forth on trade. And that's really the marginal mover of the market. We still move in relation to that, Wilf.
Bob, thanks very much. Of course, those bonds were also moving because of central bank action, and the ECB announced its latest policy moves today before the open. Steve Leisman joins us with the breakdown. Hey, Steve.
Yeah, Wilf, thanks very much. The European Central Bank cutting rates and launching a new round of bond buying, which launched an immediate tweet from the president blasting the Federal Reserve, saying that growth and inflation are both expected to be weaker than previously forecast and that risks are to the downside. ECB President Mario Draghi announced a 10 basis point cut in its deposit facility to minus 0.5 basis points, or minus 0.5%, and an additional 20 billion euros monthly of quantitative easing. The president then tweeting, European Central Bank acting quickly cuts rates 10 basis points. They are trying and succeeding in depreciating the euro against the very strong dollar, hurting U.S. exports, and the Fed sits and sits and sits. They get paid to borrow money while we are paying interest. At his press conference, Mario Draghi was asked about the president's tweets.
The answer is very simple. We have a mandate. We pursue price stability, and we don't target exchange rates. Period.
not mentioned by the president. U.S. growth is stronger here than in Europe, which is now thought to be weaker, and inflation rising here, falling in Europe, both of which suggest rates should be higher in the U.S. The administration, not the Fed, of course, also has the authority over dollar policy. If the president wants a weaker dollar, he also can order his Treasury Secretary to intervene. Wilf?
Steve, the president does have a point to some extent about the euro here, does he not?
Yes, to the extent that Mario Draghi wants to help the European economy by helping the export sector and improving the terms of trade, that would be something that would perhaps help the Europeans at our expense. The trouble is, what else should Draghi be doing if he has a problem with inflation? It suggests that his policy rate is too low, whereas if you look today, Wolf, at our inflation rate, as well as last week's wage gains, it does not necessarily suggest a policy rate that's too low, especially given the low unemployment rate in the United States.
Steve, there was one other part of that press conference which I just thought was extraordinary, where Mario Draghi essentially said he needs to see fiscal stimulus to really see any kind of turnaround in the economic numbers. But short of that, there is no other option, a sort of desperate ploy to try and force the politicians to give fiscal stimulus. He kind of admitted that this on its own won't do enough.
I thought that was extraordinary. Draghi has been calling for fiscal stimulus for a very long time. It reminded me of the days when both Bernanke and Yellen said that the Federal Reserve or the central bank can't do it all on its own. European fiscal policy has been relatively tight, certainly relative to the United States, where we announced hitting the $1 trillion mark in our deficit. So, yeah, the idea that he, by the way, Wilf, he's not even trying to go back to his 2%. He says getting near 2% is the goal now. So you're right. It's an extraordinary admission from the central bank that they need fiscal help to make it happen.
Steve, thank you very much. Stephanie, your take on whether we're going to see a turnaround in the Eurozone anytime soon and whether that's needed for some kind of change in momentum in the U.S. economy.
I think you need China to turn, and I think you are seeing China stabilize, and I think that would be very positive for the United States, global growth, and even Europe. But I absolutely agree with Lehman and Draghi. You need fiscal stimulus, and one of the reasons why rates actually bottomed last week was there was rumors that Germany was going to announce some sort of stimulus on the fiscal side. Whether or not they have to be in a recession for 2 quarters in a row or not, I don't know, but that's what got people excited. I think that's what you absolutely need.
Yeah, I mean, the only other point to add on that, of course, on the political side in Europe is that Germany has the room to stimulate. The likes of Italy don't without breaking very long-standing fiscal rules. So
and Germany's more important anyway, right?
Germany's more important, but it's still not kind of going to be necessarily transformational for everyone. Let's move on. Industrials on watch today as a number of executives weigh in on the state of business at a Morgan Stanley Laguna conference. We'll just pause here as well. We had some applause as the Navy here are on the floor. And well-deserved applause here, of course. They will be here towards the close. And we'll keep an eye on them throughout. Now, let's move on. Morgan is having a look at the highlights of that Industrials conference.
Morgan on Morgan. Well, you just talked about Europe. That was actually a theme that was emerging out of day one of this conference. We had comments from a number of major multinational industrials today. Let's start with General Electric. Had a busy 24 hours after nearly $3 billion worth of shares selling. Nearly $3 billion worth of shares in Baker Hughes, scuttling its majority stake. That happened yesterday. Also announcing a debt tender today. At the conference, GE CEO Larry Culp saying GE has talked about a target of bringing back the leverage ratio down to below 2.5%, making good progress there. Also said China's a watch point for the company operationally, particularly in health care. Culp saying he's keeping an eye on the return to service of Boeing 737 MAX, and that, keep in mind, GE makes the engine for that plane, and that he sees a lot of opportunity for, quote, lean at the aviation unit, which could boost margins there. Stock down fractionally today. Another name in focus, though, Honeywell, which is also lower, and you did see that stock move down to about 1% after CFO Greg Lewis warning of, quote, a bit more softness in Europe, in particular Germany, but also backing Honeywell's financial projections, noting strength in the aerospace business for that company. Two more that were in focus: defense contractor Raytheon, also United Technologies. And as UTC moves to spin off its non-aerospace businesses, those two companies saying that integration planning are underway for their merger of equals and that they are expecting to close in the first half of 2020. Also saying, guys, that mid-October, October 11th, is when they're going to be having their shareholder votes on that merger, which has been getting a lot of attention from a variety of different folks and different people in the industry, including, most recently, presidential candidate and Senator Elizabeth Warren. There was an article about that earlier today.
And broader markets, though, stay near session highs. We're up 116 points on the Dow. Joining us to discuss, Erin Brown, Managing Director and Portfolio Manager at PIMCO. Erin, yields markedly higher this week and including today, despite the fact that we had a major central bank cutting rates into deeper into negative territory. What's driving this continued spike in yields of late?
I think there's a couple of reasons. Firstly, it's optimism that maybe we're moving closer and closer to some type of trade agreement, or at least a detente with China with respect to trade tension. So I think that's the first thing. I think secondarily, what's driving this move, if you unpack it, is really the move that we've seen in break-even inflation, particularly today. So you haven't seen a significant move higher in real yields, but you are seeing the market price in higher inflation. And I think part of that is being driven by the CPI number that came out earlier today, and then also by the accommodative policies through central banks, where the market is expecting that it is going to have some impact to rising inflation. The one thing, I would note, and certainly other speakers this morning have noted as well, is that I think it's a little bit of a fool's errand to think that we're going to get close to the 2% inflation level, but getting a little bit higher in terms of versus what the market's pricing in right now is what I think the market is getting a little bit excited about, which is why you're seeing inflation, why you're seeing nominal yields rise.
Stephanie, going back to industrials for a moment, between some of the comments we've gotten today from the Morgan Stanley conference, what we've heard from some of these companies in general more recently, do you still like names in the space? Are you still bullish on them? And I guess what would be a warning sign to you?
Well, I think, yes, I do still like industrials. A lot of it is valuation. A lot of it is that they've lagged so substantially in the last 2 quarters. And I think expectations are already set in the stocks prices that earnings are coming down. Whether they're coming down 5%, 10%, some people think it's even more than that. But I think the valuations are expecting a lot of that. If you have good exposure in aerospace and defense, I like that sector very much. I like housing as an end market. I still even like non-resi and resi construction. Even though it's come down, you still have a lot of these indicators like the Dodge Index above 50, and that's expansionary. So, okay, it's down from 57 to 50, but I still think that these companies are going to be able to put up some good numbers, and they're very good on the margin side. And I think that they will continue because a lot of them have already restructured and also have taken pricing. So I like some self-help stories. United Technologies, as you mentioned, because of the spins that they're going to be doing, and also the Raytheon acquisition. I like Stanley Black & Decker. They've already taken a whole bunch of pricing. And I still like GE because I think it's a turnaround story over the next 2 or 3 years.
Erin, the rotation we'd seen at the start of the week has paused today, but you still like value, you still like dividend stocks, is that right?
I like dividend stocks, not value. I actually continue to like growth relative to value at this point in the cycle. Our view is that growth is going to continue to decline in the U.S. and that, despite the, positive stimulus effects that you may see from the Fed and, despite certainly some temporary peace or temporary sort of agreement on a trade deal, we don't think it's going to be a meaningful trade deal that's really going to start to reignite stimulus in the U.S. economy. So as a result of that, we think that growth is going to continue to move lower. At that point in the market, when growth is slowing and still quite low, you want to own growth. You want to own the secular companies that can do well in absence of a high GDP environment. So I like the tech sector still, and I would be buying software and services right now, which is sold off and underperformed over the last couple of weeks. I would also be looking at the dividend yielding stocks like utilities. I think REITs also offer value, and I like the sort of U.S. housing market as an end market as well. But I would be barbelling the portfolio, staying away from value, buying secular growth, and buying dividends.
Erin, thanks for joining us. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Still ahead, we'll drill down on the ECB's decision and how it impacts the Fed's next move with former Fed Governor Dan Tarullo.
Plus, Walmart announcing a new move to take on Amazon in the delivery battle. But could it come at a cost to shareholders? We're going to discuss ahead. And as we head to break, here's a check on our data tracker. The U.S. Consumer Price Index matching expectations with a gain of 0.1% in August. And weekly jobless claims fell by 15,000 to a 5-month low of just over 200,000. Stick around. Closing bell. We'll be right back.
Casa Bacardi is back, bringing a party with an unmissable lineup and tasty rum cocktails to London. With Bacardi's new Sound of Rum crew, featuring live sets from One Nason and P Money, MCing from Harry Pinero, and loads more. The perfect recipe for an epic night out. Casa Bacardi at Box Park Croydon on September 14th. For more info and to get your tickets now, head to boxpark.co.uk. Do what moves you. Over 18s only. Drink aware for the facts.
This one shouldn't take long. Of course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there. And then they'd have chained the back wheel. It would have taken me much longer, especially if the chain's off the ground. Makes it harder to cut. This one doesn't even have a lock on the front. So, in the time I've been talking to you, I've nicked it.
Over 9,000 scooters and motorbikes were stolen in London last year. Lock your bike, chain the rear wheel, and cover it to make it harder to steal. Lock, chain, cover. The Met Police.
You're in charge of hiring, and Indeed has solutions, like online skills tests, which let a candidate show that they are the right hire. And we give you this toy monkey, who will bang its cymbals when the right CV appears on your desktop. Okay, there is no monkey. There is no monkey. But there are online skills tests.
See why more than 250,000 companies in the UK use Indeed for hiring. Visit Indeed.com/try today to try skills tests for free today. Terms and conditions apply.
Nurses like you love the RCNI Nursing Careers and Jobs Fair. Here's why.
It's an easy way to get your CPD hours.
There are loads of job opportunities on the day.
The free workshops are great for learning something new.
It's an event just for us. The RCNI Nursing Careers and Jobs Fair. Coming to London on the 17th and 18th of September. Register now for free entry. Search RCNI Events.
1 in 2 people believe they should check their work email on holiday. 1 in 3 believe it's okay to eat a colleague's lunch. And 1 in 14 believe it's okay to steal loo roll from work. People believe all sorts of strange things. Some people believe that insurance companies try to avoid paying claims. But last year, Zurich paid 99% of insurance claims made by their UK customers. Zurich, an insurance company you can believe in. To find out more, visit zurich.co.uk/99.
Summer wardrobe weather struggles? Introducing convertible wellies. 1 minute they're Wellington boots, the next flip-flops.
Convertible wellies never going to happen, is it? But with the new BP Me Rewards card, getting more of the summer essentials you love more often will. Search BP Me Rewards to find out more.
Welcome back to the closing bell. Walmart is rolling out a subscription service for unlimited same-day grocery delivery. The service will be offered in 1,400 stores later this fall and will charge an annual membership fee of $98. This is $1 cheaper than Shipt or Instacart, and it's below Amazon's Prime bundle. Walmart is currently trading up just about 1% right now. Stephanie, what do you think of this news? Do you like Walmart, and is this a reason to like it perhaps more?
I like Walmart a lot. It's had a nice run, but the valuation is still pretty attractive. This is their strategy, though, to heavily invest for the consumer and making the consumer's experience better and better, and the best, actually. And I actually think they're going to gain market share. That's ROIC accretive. I think they're going to be able to spend, it's about $1 billion in SG&A that they're talking about.
Yeah.
But they are still, it's still well within their guidance, and I think you're going to be able to still see operating leverage, which was really my reason for owning it anyway, spending coming down and earnings going up, growth going up.
Yeah, you just sort of touched on it, but I think that is kind of the key question. At what cost? Because we know delivery infrastructure is a very expensive investment to make.
Yeah, and that was one of the reasons why the stock didn't do anything for the last several years, because they were heavily in spending. We weren't seeing any top-line growth nor organic growth, and earnings were actually missing like every other quarter. Now, actually, they're controlling their investment spend, and I think they're doing it very wisely, and I think that they will be able to reap the rewards, and I think the consumer, more than anything, is going to be very happy.
It's also something they've got a first-mover advantage on over Amazon, which is rare, because Whole Foods hasn't got this footprint yet.
Absolutely.
And perhaps that can stop Amazon's march in at least one area. We have just under 40 minutes left of trade. We're higher by 113 points on the Dow, about 0.5%. Let's send them to Mike for today's market dashboard. Hi, Mike.
Hello, Wilf. Here's what we got. Vital signs stable, at least based on the bond market's blood pressure right now. We'll take a look at stock and bond interplay there. And then plenty of fluids. That's how you get better. And that's also what the corporate debt market is delivering to the financial system right there. We've got the big exhale. There's been some relief that's really pervaded investor mood lately, and we're going to take a closer look at that. And then fees for service, an alternative look at price trends in the economy in the next hour. But vital signs, first of all, this chart is from our friend Tony Dwyer over at Canaccord Genuity, and it looks at this bull market cycle, stocks against the 10-year Treasury yield. And he wanted to point out a couple of things. This is back in 2011, 2012. The blue line is the S&P 500. That's when stocks bottomed. It was months later before the Treasury yields bottomed. So between this period, stocks were holding up, but yields kept going down. Same thing right here. Stocks bottomed here in 2016, but it still was months before yields bottomed. Then yields picked up. And by the way, these rallies that continued on were led by the more cyclical sectors. So a lot of what we're seeing going on right now. Now, who knows right now if this is going to prove to be a very consequential low in Treasury yields, but it would also fit the pattern of a stock bottom happening beforehand and, of course, eventually led by the more cyclical sectors once yields had turned higher. So this is a long-term chart, kind of a pattern to keep an eye on. Obviously, can't project ahead and say that we're going to go to wonderful new heights. I would point out here, you did kind of chop around and not do it very much after yields bottom for a little while there in 2016.
Mike, really interesting analysis. Thank you very much. We'll see Mike again shortly.
Well, after the break, healthcare, sticking with that theme, among the worst sectors so far this year. But Deutsche Bank out with a new note picking winners into the space. We're going to get the word on the streets on that call next.
And later, we'll speak with Elon Musk's sister, Tasha Musk, about her streaming video company Passionflix and how she plans to take on the streaming giants. We're back in a couple minutes.
Do you have concerns about mild memory loss?
Casa Bacardi is back, bringing a party with an unmissable lineup and tasty rum cocktails to London. With Bacardi's new Sound of Rum crew, featuring live sets from One Asen and P Money, MCing from Harry Pinero, and loads more. The perfect recipe for an epic night out. Casa Bacardi at Box Park Croydon on September 14th. For more info and to get your tickets now, head to boxpark.co.uk. Do what moves you. Over 18s only. Drink aware for the facts.
Did someone say winter sun? It's that time again. And this year at Jet2 Holidays, we're saying Cyprus. On this incredible island, you get it all. A choice of 4- and 5-star hotels, amazing ancient ruins for culture-packed days out, hiking and cycling trails for active adventures, and plenty of blue flag beaches for soaking up that winter sun. Book Cyprus now with just a £60 deposit. Jet2 Holidays. Package holidays you can trust. APRA and ATOL protected, subject to availability and conditions.
You're in charge of hiring, and Indeed has solutions, like online skills tests, which let a candidate show that they are the right hire. And we give you this toy monkey, who will bang its symbols when the right CV appears on your desktop. Okay, there is no monkey. There is no monkey. But there are online skills tests.
See why more than 250,000 companies in the UK use Indeed for hiring. Visit Indeed.com/try today to try skills tests for free today. Terms and conditions apply.
1 in 4 children believe potatoes grow on trees. 1 in 5 children believe fish fingers are made from chicken. And 1 in 8 adults believe the moon landings didn't happen. People believe all sorts of strange things. Some people believe that insurance companies try to avoid paying claims. But last year, Zurich paid 99% of insurance claims made by their UK customers. Zurich, an insurance company you can believe in. To find out more, visit zurich.co.uk/99.
Summer wardrobe weather struggles? Introducing convertible wellies. 1 minute they're Wellington boots, the next flip-flops.
Convertible wellies, never going to happen, is it? But with the new BP Me Rewards card, getting more of the summer essentials you love more often will. Search BP Me Rewards to find out more.
To closing bell, time to get word on the street. Deutsche Bank initiating coverage of healthcare stocks, naming CVS as its top pick. The firm saying it prefers diversified names with compelling valuations as a way to be defensive into the 2020 election.
Nomura upgrading Activision Blizzard to buy, raising its price target to $64 from $49 a share. And the firm citing reignited franchise interest and mobile opportunities. That stock's up almost 1%. Meantime, Wells Fargo downgrading Caterpillar and Deere to market perform with $143 and $170 price targets, respectively. The firm citing lackluster third quarter channel checks and says U.S. construction equipment demand is at or near a peak. As you can see there, both Cat and Deere are trading down 1% apiece. Stephanie, what do you think of those names, Cat and Deere, right now? Caterpillar in particular, there's a story that tends to get overlooked, especially in this upgrade cycle right now, and that's the fact that they are connecting all of their machines, right? It's the whole industrial Internet of Things, and they are looking to use that to basically leverage those sales to make these machines more cost efficient for their customers.
And that's what I say, when these industrial companies can hang on to their margins, this is one of the reasons. AI is a very big part of this story. The reason the analysts downgraded it, it's up 16% from the lows. He's taking his money off the table. We know construction in the U.S. is softening. We just talked about it, but mining cycle is only 3 years in. I think at 11 times earnings, a lot of bad news is priced in.
Cat, though, down 1% today. The broader market higher by over 100 points on the Dow. Coming up, we've got your last chance trade, and Stephanie's looking towards the semiconductor space. We'll reveal her particular call just ahead.
And up next, energy stocks seeing a big reversal this month among the top performing sectors so far in September. We'll discuss whether that rally can last and the names to watch.
Exactly. Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance.
Casa Bacardi is back, bringing a party with an unmissable lineup and tasty rum cocktails to London. With Bacardi's new Sound of Rum crew, featuring live sets from One Asen and P Money, MCing from Harry Pinero, and loads more. The perfect recipe for an epic night out. Casa Bacardi at Box Park Croydon on September 14th. For more info and to get your tickets now, head to boxpark.co.uk. Do what moves you. Over 18s only. Drink aware for the facts.
You're in charge of hiring, and Indeed has solutions, like online skills tests, which let a candidate show that they are the right hire. And we give you this toy monkey, who will bang its symbols when the right CV appears on your desktop. Okay, there is no monkey. There is no monkey. But there are online skills tests.
See why more than 250,000 companies in the UK use Indeed for hiring. Visit Indeed.com/try today to try skills tests for free today. Terms and conditions apply.
With Parliament suspended, what does this mean for Brexit? Will there be a vote of no confidence? A general election? Turbulent times lie ahead, and our team of experts are uniquely placed to give you the inside track. Turn to The Telegraph for clarity. Subscribe now at telegraph.co.uk.
1 in 2 people believe they should check their work email on holiday. 1 in 3 believe it's okay to eat a colleague's lunch. And 1 in 14 believe it's okay to steal loo roll from work. People believe all sorts of strange things. Some people believe that insurance companies try to avoid paying claims. But last year, Zurich paid 99% of insurance claims made by their UK customers. Zurich, an insurance company you can believe in. To find out more, visit zurich.co.uk/99.
This one shouldn't take long. Of course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there. And they'd have chained the back wheel. It would have taken me much longer, especially if the chain's off the ground. Makes it harder to cut. This one doesn't even have a lock on the front. So, in the time I've been talking to you, I've nicked it.
Over 9,000 scooters and motorbikes were stolen in London last year. Lock your bike, chain the rear wheel, and cover it to make it harder to steal. Lock, chain, cover. The Met Police.
British summer can be as unpredictable as the weather. Footwear dilemma. Introducing convertible wellies. 1 minute they're Wellington boots, the next flip-flops.
Ooh, slightly embarrassing. Convertible wellies will never happen. However, with the new BP Me Rewards card, getting more of the summer essentials you love more often will. Search BP Me Rewards to find out more. BP, every day, brighter.
Welcome back. Shares of Oracle falling today after the company announced CEO Mark Hurd will be taking a health-related leave of absence. That news broke yesterday after the bell, and we've now gotten reports that he's been grappling with the illness for more than a year. Oracle also released earnings, seeing revenue come in slightly below estimates. The stock, as you can see, down about 4.3%.
We've got 29 minutes left to go until the closing bell here. The Dow's currently up 115 points. Here are the three things that are driving the action today. Trade optimism. Both the U.S. and China have extended an olive branch in the form of soybean purchases and tariff delays. But it's been a whipsawed session today as conflicting headlines from the White House inject volatility into stocks. Plus, we've got a new stimulus plan and a rate cut from the ECB ahead of the Fed's turn next week. It's time now for a CNBC News Update with Sue Herrera. Sue.
Hello, Morgan. Hello, everyone. Here's what's happening at this hour. The U.S. budget deficit widened to more than $1 trillion in the first 11 months of the fiscal year for the first time in 7 years. Higher spending on the military, rising interest expenses on government debt, and weak revenues combined to push the deficit up 19% from October through August. The suspect in the mass shooting at a Walmart in El Paso has been indicted for capital murder. A grand jury charging 21-year-old Patrick Crusius in the August shooting, which killed 22 people. Prosecutors are seeking the death penalty. Former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe facing the prospect of an indictment after his attorneys were unable to persuade Justice Department officials not to pursue charges. It still isn't immediately clear when or even whether the U.S. Attorney's Office in Washington might announce those charges. And here's a feel-good story. A Florida fourth grader who was bullied over his homemade University of Tennessee T-shirt has now been offered a 4-year scholarship to the school. Officials say the scholarship would cover tuition and fees beginning in the fall of 2028 if he chooses to attend and meets the admission requirements. And guys, there's been an outpouring of support for that young man, and the Tennessee bookstore has been reprinting his T-shirts, selling it, and then donating all the proceeds to the organization Stomp Out Bullying. So that's your feel-good story for the day.
That is a feel-good
I'm
story.
glad it turned around because I saw the first line of your story saying the word bullying, and it was a nice turnaround to be a feel-good story.
It has a happy ending.
It does indeed. Sue, thank you. We'll see you next hour. Let's send it over to Mike Santoli for his second market dashboard. Mike, over to you.
Well, talking about plenty of fluids, right? You had a lot of liquidity in the bond market. You can look at this in a couple of different ways. This chart of financial conditions and the trend in financial conditions shows them loosening up pretty significantly. This is from Morgan Stanley. So this is the overall change in financial conditions. That's the blue line. So you see dramatically from the December highs, when this line is high, it means financial conditions are tight. When it's going down, it means it's getting friendlier, less tight, looser financial conditions. However, they point out that it's almost all because of the decline in Treasury yields, which is related to Fed expectations. If you take out the Treasury effect, it's really not that much different from where it was back in the spring. Still not at a bad level, but it shows you just how much has been hinging on the fact that Treasury yields have collapsed. Other factors in here are oil, stocks, the dollar, things like that. Finally, a quick look at corporate debt spreads. This is the spread between the highest level of junk bonds and the lowest level of investment grade. Double B versus triple B. This is pretty steady. This is not really telling you there's all that much to worry about in terms of risk tolerance in the bond market. This is a very long-term chart, but it shows you that we're holding in a range, although not at the best levels, which were 2013 and 14, guys.
But Mike, I mean, it's such an important analysis and actually applies even more so, I think, to Europe, which is that financial conditions have actually eased already this year, and yet we're talking about further cuts since the ECB ended bond buying. Yields have fallen significantly, and that's now the tool to try and reinflate the economy.
Well, and of course that immediately prompts the response, well, the reason financial conditions have eased is because of the expectation of central bank action, right? So it's hard to sort of unspool exactly what has gone into this decline in yields, whether it is just assuming central banks are going to be there doing more stimulus, or if in fact it would have happened on its own. But to your point, it's hard to think that the fact of central bank easing is going to incrementally loosen financial conditions from where they've already been.
Mike, thank you. As always, we'll see you again later in the hour.
Well, energy is the worst performing sector this year, but the best performing sector this month. Will the September rally rage on? Joining us to discuss is Raymond James energy analyst Pavel Molchanov and Cowen senior energy analyst David Deckelbaum. Good afternoon to you both. Pavel, I'll start with you. The fact that energy stocks are up something like 2.5% week to date, they're up for the month so far, even as Brent and WTI have weakened. Why the divergence now?
Well, let's zoom out a little bit. As you said, energy is worst performer year to date. It's actually underperformed in 8 of the last 9 years. And in fact, energy's weighting within the S&P 500 is at the same level as it was in 1999 when oil was less than $10 a barrel. Of course, oil's, about 6 times that today. So the fact is, energy stocks and the commodity have been diverging, and they diverged in the first half of this year when oil went up, but the stocks didn't do much. So we're seeing a little bit of a linkage kind of reviving, which is very healthy, and we need a lot more of that, but it's just a start.
David, you don't see the recent rally in some of these energy stocks as particularly justified?
I'd say that, to Pavel's point, I think that this is susceptible to be happening when you have an index that has a minuscule weighting. I still think that there's plenty of reasons to doubt that we're going to exceed $55 a barrel next year. You have almost 700,000 barrels a day of new projects coming online outside the U.S. in the next several months. We've seen demand trending close to 1 million barrels a day. And we still see Permian capacity expanding in the back half of this year, which should fuel a little bit more onshore growth into 2020. So I think you look at global supply-demand balances, it doesn't necessarily paint the most bullish picture in 20. And I think for the stocks particularly, you're transitioning now from a growth sector to still into an income or value sector. I think that transition still takes quite a bit of time. And fundamentally speaking, I don't think there's a ton of reason to see this rally following through for meaningfully for several months.
Pavel, what is your target for oil over the coming months? Where do you think the price goes?
Well, short answer is we think it's going to go higher. Now, obviously, the trade war situation has been a headwind, no question. But let's remember, Iranian supply is down dramatically versus a year ago. Venezuela continues to fall off a cliff. And also in 2020, the IMO low sulfur regulations come in, which will further put a dent in global supply. So we think that oil should be setting cyclical highs in 2020, considerably north of where we are today, probably north of where we peaked this past spring, kind of 75 bucks a barrel. So there is certainly room for it to surprise to the upside, but it would help if the demand side of things became clarified once there is a trade deal with China.
Steph, you like Schlumberger?
I do.
Just oil services, or you want the integrated as well? Or?
I kind of do the barbell there, too. So I own Chevron, Schlumberger, and then I also own Diamondback Energy, FANG. So I actually think this group, so unloved, so under-owned. You saw what these stocks did this week just on the rotation, the value factor rotation. So if you believe, like I do, that the value factor rotation is going to get legs again, maybe starting next week, this group is under-owned and it won't take much. And if you have 55 oil, if you get 65 oil, that's quite good, especially for services.
David, the fact that we've seen the spread between Brent and WTI narrow in the last couple of months, I know some of that's been some infrastructure coming online out of the Permian here in the U.S. Does that make some of those infrastructure names, those pipeline names, look attractive right now?
I think the pipeline companies might be attractive, but I still think that we're probably in a situation where, unless the U.S. sustains the growth that it seems over the last several years, we could be in a scenario where we've overbuilt our infrastructure. And to your point, we are exporting a ton more barrels than we have historically. That does contribute to that Brent-TI narrowing spread, which we think is probably sustainable into next year. I don't think that there's very much call on future infrastructure at this point. So I'd look for that market to tighten up a bit more, I think, before looking to rotate out of other areas like the upstream companies.
Pavel, lastly, anything in terms of the OPEC or Saudi or Iran news that we've been getting this week that, I guess, contributes to your thesis or that you're keeping a very close eye on in terms of crude prices moving forward?
Sure. We're watching the Saudi Aramco IPO. I mean, not only is that going to be just an epic scale deal once that happens, but Saudi Arabia needs to keep oil prices high for that deal to be successful, right? Who wants to buy the IPO of Saudi Aramco if oil prices are plunging? So between now and whenever that IPO materializes, Saudi has an incentive to support the oil market in every way that it can. That's bullish for prices.
All right, gentlemen. Thanks for joining us today. We've got 19 minutes before the bell. The Dow is up 93 points right now. The S&P is at 3014. We could see a record close on the S&P, so we're watching that closely. Still to come, AT&T's Warner Media striking a deal with J.J. Abrams. But the company is warning about a key metric, and we've got those details next.
Plus, on the heels of the ECB's new stimulus plan, we'll talk to former Fed Governor Dan Tarullo about what low rates mean for the banks and what we might see from the Fed next week.
Flight number 417 is...
Casa Bacardi is back, bringing a party with an unmissable lineup and tasty rum cocktails to London. With Bacardi's new Sound of Rum crew, featuring live sets from One Asen and P Money, MCing from Harry Pinero, and loads more. The perfect recipe for an epic night out. Casa Bacardi at Box Park Croydon on September 14th. For more info and to get your tickets now, head to boxpark.co.uk. Do what moves you. Over 18s only. Drink aware for the facts.
This one shouldn't take long. Of course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there. And then they'd have chained the back wheel. It would have taken me much longer, especially if the chain's off the ground. Makes it harder to cut. This one doesn't even have a lock on the front. So, in the time I've been talking to you, I've nicked it.
Over 9,000 scooters and motorbikes were stolen in London last year. Lock your bike, chain the rear wheel, and cover it to make it harder to steal. Lock, chain, cover. The Met Police.
1 in 2 people believe they should check their work email on holiday. 1 in 3 believe it's okay to eat a colleague's lunch. And 1 in 14 believe it's okay to steal loo roll from work. People believe all sorts of strange things. Some people believe that insurance companies try to avoid paying claims. But last year, Zurich paid 99% of insurance claims made by their UK customers. Zurich, an insurance company you can believe in. To find out more, visit zurich.co.uk/99.
I don't even remember what colour this carpet is.
Bedroom looking a bit messy? Get to B&Q. Declutter while adding contemporary style with our fantastic range of flat pack furniture. And there's up to 20% off selected styles, including white gloss, oak effect, and stylish grey. You can do it when you B&Q it.
Is the sound of tiny pieces of gravel crunching and popping against one another underneath the sport-styled wheels of the new Ford Focus ST, stimulating your senses into a spine-tinglingly relaxed state? No? Or maybe its powerful engine and the latest technology might help you relax instead. Contact your local Ford dealer to find out more about the new Focus ST and experience a new way to relax.
What's that, Britain? You want unlimited data? Oh, you want more. You want it on the unstoppable, unbeaten, unrivaled #1 network? Well, who says you can't? Get unlimited data on EE today, the UK's unrivaled #1 network.
Unlimited data, personal use only. Terms apply. Root metrics comparison of 4 mobile networks H2 2013 to H1 2019. See ee.co.uk.
Welcome back. Just over 15 minutes of trade left. Let's check in on some individual market movers. Shares of Hertz higher today. On news, activist investor Carl Icahn has increased his stake in the company. According to a filing, Icahn increased his stake to 30.1% from 29.5%. It's up 4%. And Groupon reportedly looking to make an acquisition, and sources say Yelp may be the target. Groupon has been under pressure lately from activist investors who've been urging the company to make changes. As you can see, Groupon down 4%, Yelp up 6%.
Speaking of companies under activist pressure, though, shares of AT&T dipping on expectations and video subscriber losses. CNBC's Julia Borson has more on the story. Julia.
Morgan, AT&T shares now trading down about 1%. They were down as much as 2% earlier today. This after AT&T's CFO John Stevens warned about more declines in the company's video division, projecting it will lose as much as 1.3 million video subscribers in the third quarter. That's at least 300,000 more subscribers lost than in the second quarter. He also warned that Warner Media's revenues will decline by $400 million in the third quarter. And today, Warner Media just announced an exclusive deal with J.J. Abrams to produce new TV projects for all of its platforms, including HBO Max. He'll also produce movies for Warner Brothers, a deal reportedly worth $250 million. Now, Abrams will finish existing projects for Paramount, and he has an upcoming Star Wars movie and an Apple TV Plus series, but this is an exclusive deal, a correction from what we said earlier today. Now, this, of course, is just the latest in the land grab for top content creators. Guys, back over to you.
Julia, as you said, the latest in what has been quite a big land grab. These numbers that are thrown around are extraordinary, but only would hit those numbers based on delivering quite a large slate of shows.
Well, look, J.J. Abrams is a hit maker, and I think the fact that he does have a show at Apple TV Plus and also is producing and directing this upcoming Star Wars movie just speaks to how successful he is and how reliable he is in drawing major audiences. He's also unusual that he really has a huge track record both in TV and in movies. So what we've seen is with Netflix is spending hundreds of millions of dollars to secure deals with the likes of Shonda Rhimes and Ryan Murphy. They want to make sure that they can lock up that talent because now Netflix, HBO Max, Disney Plus, all of these services are going to be really competing with each other, and it all comes down to how good the content is.
Julia, thank you very much. Now, new data shows active investing is gaining ground on passive investing. CNBC's Leslie Picker has more for us. Hi, Leslie.
Hey, Wilf. According to Morningstar, 48% of active U.S. stock funds beat passive indexes in the year through June. That's up 37% year over year. But passive vehicles are still becoming increasingly dominant. Passive is now taken over almost half of the stock market, according to Bank of America. And that's caused hedge funds to build up the credit side of their business. The CIO of Sculptor told us earlier today that's why they've been growing credit to be more than half of their $33 billion in assets under management.
Particularly on the credit side, that's really hard to replicate, as you say. So within the world of opportunistic credit, there's not an ETF that can work a company through a bankruptcy process or work a company through a liquidation of assets. So within credit, we try to focus on things where what we do, hopefully, we'll be able to have an edge in for a long time.
Sculptor's up almost 10% this year and has seen inflows into credit and outflows from their multi-strategy fund, guys.
How does this relate in terms of performance, Leslie? Have we started to see good enough performance to justify the flows?
On the credit side of their business, absolutely. And on their real estate business, absolutely. Multi-strategy has just been a tough strategy overall. It's kind of feast or famine these days across the multi-strategy world. Multi-strategy oftentimes invest in various different strategies in their underlying. For Sculptor's case, they do have about $8 billion in equity investing that they, of course, are kind of wrapped up in that whole difficulty surrounding equity investing in the hedge fund world right now. So credit, especially since you don't really benchmark that against the S&P, has been drawing more inflows and has been a standout among their credit peers at Sculptor.
Leslie, thank you. Shares of Sculptor up 8%. Stephanie, your thoughts on this? I mean, especially the last couple of weeks, all the volatility we've seen got to have been a little tougher.
I mean, I hope active beats passive because that's obviously what my book is and that's what my company is all about. But I think you definitely need to see sustainable performance, outperformance of active versus passive. And that's just starting to happen. So if that continues, then I think you can get momentum. You also need correlations to come down because you can't have every sector go up every single day. So you don't have to be a stock picker, right? So I think that actually is happening, but I think it's going to be a slow process over time. And I think you need less competition from private equity.
On a quick programming note, CNBC's Delivering Alpha Investor Summit back next week, Thursday, September 19th. Some of the world's most influential money managers and political figures will be there. Speakers include Blackstone's Steve Schwarzman, Trian's Nelson Peltz, JP Morgan's Mary Erdos, Vice President Mike Pence, and many, many more. You can go to deliveringalpha.com to register. We've got 10 minutes left to trade, and we could see a record close on the S&P. Not looking likely at the moment. We're some 15 points or so away, but nonetheless, it's been a strong week and a decent performance today. Volatile morning and holding most of the gains up 0.4% on the S&P at the moment. Up next, we'll have your last chance trade.
And later, can Walmart afford to undercut Amazon Prime's pricing? We'll ask former Walmart Walmart U.S. CEO Bill Simon about the company's new subscription delivery service. That's coming up.
Casa Bacardi is back, bringing a party with an unmissable lineup and tasty rum cocktails to London. With Bacardi's new Sound of Rum crew, featuring live sets from One Asen and P Money, MCing from Harry Pinero, and loads more. The perfect recipe for an epic night out. Casa Bacardi at Box Park Croydon on September 14th. For more info and to get your tickets now, head to boxpark.co.uk. Do what moves you. Over 18s only. Drink aware for the facts.
Already looking forward to next summer? At Jet2 Holidays, we love taking you to your favourite sunny destinations, including Menorca, Antalya and the Algarve. So get ahead and book summer 2020 now. Jet2 Holidays. Package holidays you can trust. ABSA and ATOL protected. 1 in 4 children believe potatoes grow on trees. 1 in 5 children believe fish fingers are made from chicken. And 1 in 8 adults believe the moon landings didn't happen. People believe all sorts of strange things. Some people believe that insurance companies try to avoid paying claims. But last year, Zurich paid 99% of insurance claims made by their UK customers. Zurich, an insurance company you can believe in. To find out more, visit zurich.co.uk/99.
This one shouldn't take long. Of course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there. And then they'd have chained the back wheel. It would have taken me much longer, especially if the chain's off the ground. Makes it harder to cut. This one doesn't even have a lock on the front. So, in the time I've been talking to you, I've nicked it.
Over 9,000 scooters and motorbikes were stolen in London last year. Lock your bike, chain the rear wheel, and cover it to make it harder to steal. Lock, chain, cover. The Met Police.
I don't even remember what colour this carpet is.
Bedroom looking a bit messy? Get to B&Q. Declutter while adding contemporary style with our fantastic range of flat pack furniture. And there's up to 20% off selected styles, including white gloss, oak effect, and stylish grey. You can do it when you B&Q it.
Cloud, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Your employees must love you.
Thank you. You could say that. So how are things with you guys?
Great.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Lunch next week?
Terrific. Say hi to the team.
Will do. Yeah. Call my office.
I will. Sounds good. All righty.
Service now. Works for you.
You should be mad at leaf blowers. You should be mad your neighbor always wants to hang out.
I got a new grill.
And you should be mad your smart fridge is unnecessarily complicated.
Make ice.
Making ice. But you're not mad because you have E-Trade, which isn't complicated. Their tools make trading quicker and simpler so you can take on the markets with confidence. Don't get mad. Get E-Trade and start trading today.
The Closing Bell is sponsored by E-Trade, the original place to invest online.
Welcome back. 6 minutes left to go. Stephanie, last chance trade. What are you going for?
NXP Semiconductor. So this is a recovery, a play on the recovery in global growth. Now, I'm not saying that we're seeing a recovery. I'm saying we're seeing stability. But if we start to see growth, this company will benefit. Almost all semiconductors will. It's also a play on the recovery in auto. And auto, the SAR in North America has been at 17 million for the last 5 years consecutively. So I think there's still momentum in auto. And then I would say there's self-help in terms of margin improvement, buybacks, dividends. They just raised the dividend and the valuation is at 13 times.
The question on autos, is it a last hurrah? Because we did see it come down, one little pop up. You think it's on its way back up with meaningful momentum?
I think it's kind of steady, right? I think everyone has been calling for a crash in auto, and we just haven't seen it. In fact, the numbers actually beat expectations. Inventory days are down to 61 versus 68. You're seeing very little incentive, so I think that it's not booming. But all you need is stability in auto for this stock, and this is a big end market for them, for this stock to work.
Yeah, and certainly we're getting another semiconductors earnings after the bell, Broadcom. But one of the things we have seen is this group has been trading in line with trade headlines.
Yeah.
How much does not just stabilization, but even a recovery in the semi stocks hinge on some sort of deal, or at least a truce?
You do need a truce for sure, because 60% rather of their total revenues are from Asia Pacific, so for sure. But that's one of the reasons why the stock has fallen so much as it has, right? it has had a nice bounce, a nice recovery, but I still think there's more to go because I think the earnings power is there should we see these things develop.
All right. We've got 4 minutes left to go in today's session. It is time now for the closing countdown. Let's trade the close with Kevin Hanks, Senior Equity Strategist at TD Ameritrade. Kevin, what are you watching in these final minutes of the session?
You know, this has been such an amazing day, Morgan, but definitely after the bell, we're going to watch two things. We're going to watch the earnings on Broadcom. They're looking for about a $12.70 expected move based on the options implied volatility. And then, of course, the third data point of the week in terms of our top six, which is retail sales tomorrow morning, 8:30 Eastern time, 7:30 Chicago time. They're looking for a 0.2 on the headline number. So we'll be looking at that for sure. Coming off a day where all the macroeconomic have got some big ranges, we're going to see if there's more to come tomorrow for sure. But Broadcom after the bell, retail sales tomorrow morning.
Kevin, have your clients been focused on the ECB this morning, or do they care more about domestic stuff?
You know, Wilford, it was interesting. You asked me when we spoke on Tuesday if that was important, and I believe that it was. And for a minute, it was. The announcement got a nice move in bonds. Then the CPI came in, and then when Mario Draghi started his press conference, bonds moved again. But when the dust settled, remember, it was February 2018 when we got a hot CPI number that caused rates to spike. I thought today's number was similar in terms of a hot number, 0.3 and 2.4 year over year. That was enough to rule out everything Mario Draghi said, focus on the U.S., and now we've got a 10-year, looks like it wants to go to 1.8%.
Kevin, thanks so much for joining us.
Could be a tailwind here. And I mean by that is investors got way too kind of negative and defensive over the course of August. This is a equity exposure gauge of active investment managers. It's a monthly gauge. And you see it's just kind of curled up into the neutral range. Nowhere, we never got down to December, but we did get pretty bearish here. So that's moving in the direction of greater equity exposure, and there's more room to go if they want to. And take a look at hedge funds. They have some of the lowest exposure to equities that they've had this entire cycle. If we don't have it, that's fine. But basically, it's the same story with hedge funds. They're very defensive, too negative. In fact, back to 2008, that's either a bad omen or it means they have a lot of room to start chasing any rallies that we get from here. Let's get up to Bertha at the NASDAQ now.
You know, the one thing I'm watching is new highs and the recovery back to those July highs for communications and for chips. Communications today, we've got some all-time highs for Comcast and Charter. You know, they have to provide the pipes for all those streaming services. And then chips, huge recovery. They dropped 12% from their July highs. And right now, just within a hair's breadth of matching that number with all-time highs today for Texas Instruments and ASML and Lam Research. Meantime, Smile Direct Club and 10 Genomics. Two big IPOs, both priced above the range, but investors frowning on that Smile Direct Club hitting a new low here as we go into the close. Bob? We're fading as we go into the close, Bertha. Healthcare, United Health, Pfizer, Merck weak. Apple's not helping, and it's fading fast going into the close. But we didn't have a lot of help from those cyclical sectors that have helped in the last week. So you see, look at today, transports, energy stocks, retail stocks, all on the weak side. That didn't help. Fintech was strong all throughout the day. Those are the old momentum stocks, you know, MasterCard and Visa, PayPal, Fiserv, and Intuit, all were doing well. One thing that's continued to be on fire, emerging market ETFs have just been hot all week. Emerging market ETF is up. We've had Turkey up. We have South Korea up. Look at these. Some of these have been up 5-6% in the last 4 or 5 days. There's the closing bell. We did not make it to a new high. The S&P 500 got within 67 points of a closing high, but of an intraday high, but not there. Dow Jones Industrial Average closing up 48 points.
Welcome to the closing bell. I'm Morgan Brennan in for Sarah Eisen.
And I'm Wilfred Frost alongside Mike Santoni, CNBC's senior markets commentator. Let's check in on how the markets closed, which was just losing the momentum in that final 10 or 15 minutes, such that we were only higher by 0.2% on the Dow. S&P and NASDAQ up 0.3%, and you can see the Russell in the red there. The Russell had led the charge this week. Similarly, The sectors that had outperformed at the start of the week didn't really outperform today, but certainly holding on to the gains of what has so far been a decent week.
Yeah, materials, consumer discretionary, tech stocks were the leading sectors within the S&P 500. 7 straight days of gains for the Dow Industrials. That's the longest win streak since May 2018, even though we did close off of those highs of the session. Also want to point out Smile Direct Club, which was one of 2 IPOs that happened today. One of the biggest unicorns to go public, biggest IPO raises of the year. It priced last night after the close at $23 a share, which was above the range. It closed today at $16.67, so down just over 27%. I think it was the worst performance of a so-called unicorn so far this year on the first day of the
I have to say as well, Jim was very rude about English people's teeth earlier today. Said that all English people have
Your
bad teeth.
Your teeth are lovely.
Well, thank you. That's why I just thought I'd just show them. So,
are you a product of orthodontia?
I am.
Okay.
I am. They were.
Me too.
I'm very grateful to my parents for many things. That's probably top of the list. I used to have the worst teeth ever. So maybe Jim's right about fundamentally that we have bad teeth, but thankfully some people get them corrected. Anyway, there's Smile Direct down 27.5%, but let's move on.
Yeah, so joining us now to talk about the market day, Stephanie Link is still with us, head of global equities research at Nuveen, a TIAA company, and Sean Matthews, founder and chief investment officer of Hondius Capital Management and former CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald. Good afternoon to you both. Mike Santoli, though, I will start with you.
Yeah.
How would you sum up the swings we saw today?
It was always a kind of a mild little follow-through rally, even at the highs of the day. And I think it's a little bit winded, a little bit fatigued after a 6% run in the S&P 500 right up to the cusp of a new high in just a few weeks. So I do think below the surface breadth was very mixed. I think you've lost a little bit of that initial oomph of, oh no, yields are turning higher. A lot of beaten down stocks are starting to improve. We better catch on to it. So I wouldn't take too much away from today's action in terms of saying that this rally is over, but you've gotten a lot in a short amount of time so far.
Sean, what did you make to the fairly volatile reaction to this morning's macro data and central bank action?
It was pretty amazing. If you look at copper, which is a barometer of global growth expectations, we went from 259 to 267. That's a 3% plus range. So that's a really big range for what people's thought process of what's going on in the global perspective. So ECB came out. I think they underestimated what the market really wanted. We had a huge rally. We then turned around and went the other way just because we had dissenters. So there were countries came out and said that they didn't want to have QE. So really Draghi has put a unique position out there where he's saying this is going to last for an extended period of time with no cap. And the market is saying, no, I don't think that's going to happen. So it'll be interesting over the next 6 months what really happens at the ECB.
Stephanie, meantime, we had some data again today here in the U.S. that was perhaps a little better than expected. CPI reading that was hotter than expected. How does that set us up? You have the ECB here. You got the U.S. data here. How does that come together and set us up for the Fed next week?
I know, it's hard, right? I mean, 2.4% core CPI annualized. In the last 3 months, if you annualize it, core CPI 3.4%. So you can't really say that inflation isn't around, right? It is definitely here. And I think that's actually why the bond yields actually reversed, when they were down and then they reversed higher. And I think also the fact that the financials held in there was kind of impressive as well. I thought it was going to be a complete risk-off day. It really wasn't. It was a very mixed day. Certainly some of the growth stocks made a comeback, but a lot of the value stocks, a lot of the cyclical stocks also did quite well, which is also encouraging. It's broadening out the market as a whole. Next week, as I said earlier, I think the Fed is going to have dovish language, but maybe not as much so because you have a lot of data points here in the States that have been better. So 25 they go, and then a little bit of dovish, but not as dovish as people want.
Sean, have you got conviction as to where you should be positioned in the bond market, whether here or abroad?
I think if you look at some of the opportunities that are out there, you look at five-year forwards as far as the U.S., inflation expectations are still going down and they're really at their lows. If you look in the U.K. right now, you have inflation expectations are actually rising. So 3.4% inflation expectation next year. So if you look at gilts, they're trading at 60-odd basis points. So that becomes an interesting short play out there. I think now it's just about relative value in the marketplace, but there is inflation that's working its way through the system. The question is, you're going to have expectations change as far as future inflation, and then you'll start to see the market back up aggressively. Right now, we're talking about 25 basis points in either direction, which is relatively benign. But remember 2016, when the market changes after a significant rally, it can move back very quickly. And I think that's potentially out there over the next 6 months or so.
So, Sean, does that mean that you would be investing in precious metals or other safe haven assets right now?
Absolutely. I think you want to look at, certainly on dips, buying precious metals, silver especially, on an inflation-adjusted basis. Silver is actually very cheap and has a lot of room to run. It's caught up to gold as far as a percentage, but it's still lagging a little bit. I think you want to look at copper, and I think copper is a key indicator of what's going to happen as far as what people perceive as global growth. I think there's a fundamental underlying bid for equities at this point in time, and people want to get in them in any sort of positive news that's out there. So that's a trend that I think is in place. However, if we get back to a 2% 10-year, I think people will be talking about, oh no, equities are going to be in trouble. So it's still a tenuous rally at best.
Yeah, I was going to say, that points up that we are in a little bit of a somewhat of a sweet spot in multiple dimensions, which is 1.77 on the 10-year is certainly not too high. It doesn't really undercut equity valuations, but it's also not so low that it's screaming at the market that there's a recession on the way. And I think you can look across the board. Sentiment is pretty much like that, too. And I also don't think we have a trade deal priced in, unlike, I think, early this year when you had a little bit of a mini market top, when you more or less did have an assumption that it was fully priced in.
And should point out as well, the S&P didn't close at the highs. Sorry, Sean, and up 0.3%, but still only 25 points or so from its own record, all-time closing high. Apologies, Sean and Stephanie. We'll have to leave it there. Thank you both very much for joining us. Up next, former Federal Reserve Governor Dan Tarullo tells us whether he thinks central banks will cut rates further following ECB easing today. We're back in a couple.
Through the AT&T network, Edge...
Casa Bacardi is back, bringing a party with an unmissable lineup and tasty rum cocktails to London. With Bacardi's new Sound of Rum crew, featuring live sets from One Asen and P Money, MCing from Harry Pinero, and loads more. The perfect recipe for an epic night out. Casa Bacardi at Box Park Croydon on September 14th. For more info and to get your tickets now, head to boxpark.co.uk. Do what moves you. Over 18s only. Drink aware for the facts.
This one shouldn't take long. Of course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there. And then they'd have chained the back wheel. It would have taken me much longer, especially if the chain's off the ground. Makes it harder to cut. This one doesn't even have a lock on the front. So, in the time I've been talking to you, I've nicked it.
Over 9,000 scooters and motorbikes were stolen in London last year. Lock your bike, chain the rear wheel, and cover it to make it harder to steal. Lock, chain, cover. The Met Police.
1 in 2 people believe they should check their work email on holiday. 1 in 3 believe it's okay to eat a colleague's lunch. And 1 in 14 believe it's okay to steal loo roll from work. Zurich, an insurance company you can believe in. To find out more, visit zurich.co.uk/99.
Welcome back. The Dow closing higher for a 7th straight day after a pretty volatile trading session. Bob Pisani's having a look at the big moves here at the stock exchange. Bertha Coombs will do the same from the Nasdaq. But Bob, let's start with you.
Well, we tried to get to new highs. We didn't quite make it, and we didn't have a lot of help at the very end. We drooped going into the close. Just take a look at healthcare. United Health, Pfizer, Merck. Merck still ended up positive on the day, but we all three sort of drooped going into the close. We didn't get any help from cyclical groups that had helped us all throughout the week. So energy and retail, industrials and banks really didn't do that much. That energy that we saw earlier in the week from those cyclical sectors really didn't materialize at all today. Finally, just S&P intraday, want to note 30.27 would have been the old intraday high. We got very, very close to that, just a few points away, didn't quite make it. And again, the closing high we're all looking for, 30.25, that was the end of July. Not there yet, but pretty close. Guys, back to you.
Yeah, we'll continue to be on a record watch, I guess you could say, Bob. Thank you. The Nasdaq outperforming the other major averages today, and Bertha Coombs has the details from there.
Yeah, Morgan, today it was a big switch where you saw large cap overtake, where small cap has been the driver the last couple of days. But just as Bob was talking about, even in the strength of chips, we did see that fading into the close after it came within a fraction of hitting its all-time high. The big cap names like PayPal were among the leaders today. We did have 2 IPOs, and once again, we're starting to see some of these household name unicorns are not performing as well as expected, although they did raise more for Smile Direct than anticipated. And 10x Genomics was the star today. That wasn't as big a star coming into the day, but its IPO did well. And for SoftBank, it kind of shows the names that aren't the big unicorn names are actually doing better for it. Back to you.
Bertha, thank you very much. Now, the European Central Bank cut rates by 10 basis points and set to restart asset purchases in November. This as we await a key decision from the Federal Reserve next week. Does the ECB's action put pressure on Fed Chair Jerome Powell? Former Federal Reserve Board Governor Dan Tarullo joins us now in an exclusive interview. Thanks very much for joining us, Dan. Great to see you. Do you think that the president had a point today when he suggested the ECB's actions were at least in part motivated by wanting to weaken the euro?
Well, I don't actually, Wilfred. Obviously, central banks look and project the impact on exchange rates of monetary policy moves, but the ECB's strategy has been a long-term strategy of trying to have very accommodative monetary policy, more accommodative, obviously, than we have. So I don't think there was any intentionality to affect exchange rates, although we should be clear, they probably do anticipate some exchange rate move. In the event, they were slightly frustrated, I think, because the market seems to have read the package of actions and some of the noise around the actions as perhaps delivering less than was promised.
Dan, on the one hand, we were just talking about this a few minutes ago, but on the one hand, you have slowing global growth. You have this ECB decision today. On the other hand, here in the U.S., you have some data that perhaps is not as bad as expected. You do have some inflation readings, albeit not necessarily the preferred one by the Fed, but CPI today that was hotter than expected. How does this set us up for the meeting next week and for how policy is going to be shaped for the months beyond that?
Well, I suspect that everyone at the Fed today, Morgan, is pretty happy with the text that Jay Powell delivered at Jackson Hole last month. Because as you recall, although he leaned a bit dovish, he was very careful not to give too much indication of too much easing. And I suspect that this is the debate they're going to have next week is going to be one in which the factors that you just mentioned are pushed back and forth across the table. I mean, those who have been opposed to lowering rates have been making the case that inflation has firmed some, that in their view at least, unemployment is near its sustainable low level and are obviously below in their view. And so there's not the case for doing more right now. The other side has been making the argument that it's as a kind of prophylactic measure because of the potential for shocks from trade and business uncertainty. And I think with the readings that came in today, coupled with the employment report last Friday, which again was not earth-shattering, but it was pretty good, that will probably support those who want to be quite cautious going forward. So I would expect a rate decrease and slightly dovish language, but I'd be a bit surprised if it leaned heavily in that direction.
Dan, the other strand of, I guess, resistance to further easing that we've heard is the idea that to continue to lower rates would risk some financial instability or raise the risks of related to financial market excesses and things like that. Is that something that you see out there? Because I have to say, after each Fed meeting, including the last rate reduction, the markets did not exactly, take off and run to the upside with that.
No, and Wilfred, I think it's not a short-term issue of whether there are excesses in financial markets, too much in the way of asset bubbles. It's more of a concern over the medium to longer run, and I would be more concerned with the relaxation of regulation on large financial institutions than with the posture of interest rates generally. You know, the one other thing to say here, both with respect to the economy and to banks, is while monetary policy is obviously a very powerful instrument, it doesn't cure all ills, and it can only do so much. And I think that's part of the dilemma that's facing the Fed right now. When they're scraping against the zero lower bound, their decisions become more difficult. And I don't think that sort of trade issues that are confronting them right now are as susceptible to monetary policy response as your kind of classic dip in consumer spending because of high rates.
Dan, we heard from Jamie Dimon earlier this week, and I hope he'll forgive me paraphrasing what he said, but he said he was very relaxed about credit quality as it concerns his own balance sheet, that leverage lending was an area of potential concern to keep an eye on, but that is not really something that will affect the banks. And even if it did blow up, it wouldn't be systemic in the way that mortgage-backed securities was last time around. Do you agree with all of that?
I do. I do, with perhaps a bit of a qualification. I mean, I think because of some of the steps that were taken, both regulatory and supervisory, a number of years ago, the large regulated U.S. institutions are not overly exposed in this area. That's the good news. The not so good news is there still is an awful lot of leverage lending out there, and if we get a dip in the economy, even a modest dip, a number of those companies which have taken on that debt are probably going to have difficulty remaining solvent, and that could amplify a recession. So I think Jamie Dimon is right that you're not going to see kind of knock-on effects because the banks are fairly insulated from it. But there could still be a macroeconomic effect, just not as much of a financial systemic effect.
And Dan, I'm going to paraphrase another part of his commentary. He said that if the Volcker rule was relaxed, what its effect would be for banks would be only a fractional reduction in their cost, a big increase in liquidity, and it wouldn't change what they do in terms of trading at all. Do you agree with that, or is that rhetoric to try and encourage the relaxation of the Volcker rule, which they'd then perhaps go back on a little bit once the rule change had been implemented?
Yeah, I think it's hard to say, Wilfred. You know, the Volcker rule, as you know, is one whose effect is hard to see from the outside because it does have so much to do with the way trading desks are comporting themselves. And I obviously no longer have access to that kind of information. So I think for the rest of us, we're just going to have to wait and see what the impact of the agency move is to relax.
Dan Tarullo, we appreciate your insights. Thank you for joining us today.
Sure. Thank you, Morgan.
We have an earnings alert on Broadcom, and Josh Lipton has those results for us. Josh.
So, Morgan, Broadcom reporting Q3 EPS here of $5.16. The street was at $5.13. Revenue coming in at $5.52 billion. The street had been looking for $5.54 billion. They do reiterate their full-year revenue forecast here of $22.5. On the segments, Semiconductor Solutions, that's their biggest, $4.35 billion. That is a bit better than expectations. The street was at $4.3, and Infrastructure Software at $1.14 billion. Analysts have been looking for $1.7 billion there. This call starts at 5 p.m. Eastern, and we'll be on it. Guys, back to you.
Josh, thanks very much. Mike, Broadcom, I guess, in line with the S&P 500, but below its own peer group so far year to date.
Exactly. It really has not been a leader within the semis, which themselves have been, on a bit of a hot streak now. And if anything, looks like they're getting, very short-term, a little bit stretched. But it's been a slower-moving one. The story's been muddled up with some acquisitions that the company has made. But it seems like more or less an on-target.
And exposure to Huawei, although that's kind of probably shaken out now in terms of expectations. But I guess more insight to come on the call. It's down 0.9%. In after-hours trade.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear what they have to say about Symantec as well. Speaking of possible acquisitions, still ahead, we will break down the charts to find out whether investors should be worried about the latest reading on inflation.
Plus, filmmaker Tusker Musk discusses the future of streaming and what it was like to grow up with her brother, Elon Musk.
Casa Bacardi is back, bringing a party with an unmissable lineup and tasty rum cocktails to London. With Bacardi's new Sound of Rum crew, featuring live sets from One Nation and P-Money. MCing from Harry Pinero and loads more. The perfect recipe for an epic night out. Casa Bacardi at Box Park Croydon on September 14th. For more info and to get your tickets now, head to boxpark.co.uk. Do what moves you. Over 18s only. Drink aware for the facts.
This one shouldn't take long. Of course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there. And then they'd have chained the back wheel. It would have taken me much longer, especially if the chain's off the ground. Makes it harder to cut. This one doesn't even have a lock on the front. So, in the time I've been talking to you, I've nicked it.
Over 9,000 scooters and motorbikes were stolen in London last year. Lock your bike, chain the rear wheel, and cover it to make it harder to steal. Lock, chain, cover. The Met Police.
1 in 4 children believe potatoes grow on trees. 1 in 5 children believe fish fingers are made from chicken. And 1 in 8 adults believe the moon landings didn't happen. People believe all sorts of strange things. Some people believe that insurance companies try to avoid paying claims. But last year, Zurich paid 99% of insurance claims made by their UK customers. Zurich, an insurance company you can believe in. To find out more, visit zurich.co.uk/99.
I don't even remember what colour this carpet is. Bedroom looking a bit messy. Get to B&Q. Declutter while adding contemporary style with our fantastic range of flat pack furniture. And there's up to 20% off selected styles, including white gloss, oak effect, and stylish grey. You can do it when you B&Q it.
Looking for a car you can rely on? Take a fresh look at Peugeot, voted JD Power's 2019 most dependable brand in one of the UK's most trusted reliability surveys. Now's the time to put us to the test. Experience one of our award-winning cars and enjoy an exclusive upgrade to Peugeot offer now. Visit our website for full details. Make sure your next car is built with pride. Rediscover Peugeot today. Terms and conditions apply. Offer available until 30th September 2019. For JD Power 2019 award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
Technology and the future of work. November 4th in San Francisco. CNBC's At Work Summit. Top CEOs and tech leaders. Winning strategies. Reimagining the workplace. Go to cnbcevents.com for tickets.
Welcome back to the Closing Bell. Let's send it over to Mike Santoli for his final dashboard of the day. Mike.
Morgan, calling this fees for service, and actually services prices have held up better than others. This is an alternative view of inflation. Of course, we got the consumer price index this morning on target, but the core rate was higher than expected, and in fact at a multi-year high. So the Atlanta Fed keeps another way of slicing the CPI, which is the sticky CPI and the flexible CPI. The sticky CPI is a category of goods and services that tend to be sticky in their prices. They don't swing around very much in the short term. The flexible is things that really reprice much more frequently. So what obviously you see here is sticky CPI is making a new high for this cycle. It's up toward 2.7%. What's in there is more services, but not exclusively services. And in the short term, in the flexible one, it's more things like not just food and energy, but even motor vehicles, hotels, things that really are competitively repriced at all times. So the suggestion here is that there is a core of pricing power in the economy that has to be looked at. By the way, the Cleveland Fed has the median CPI. It's telling a similar story where essentially there is a sort of a bubbling up of inflationary pressure. Certainly not a problem, nothing that the Fed would get too excited about, but something that's not necessarily showing a shortfall in inflation.
And innovation could be affecting the orange line.
To some degree, yes. I mean, in addition to lower gasoline prices and food and things like that. But yeah, without a doubt, innovation is going to cause price competition in some things.
The implication of seeing a move like this in sticky CPI, I mean, does it suggest that you're going to see higher prices for longer?
It could actually, because by definition, these are the things that don't reprice that often.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's not the majority of what you pay for, although rent is in there. And so housing cost is definitely something that seems like it has the potential long-term to stay expensive.
Mike, thank you. As always, coming up next, Walmart undercutting Amazon on price with its new grocery delivery service. Former Walmart US CEO Bill Simon tells us whether the retail giant can really afford to do that.
Plus, find out how soon we could see fully automated warehouses when we get an up-close look at DHL's first U.S. Innovation Center. Stay with us.
Okay. I can find and fund my car from a Mini to a Jag.
Car buying from findandfundmycar.com is the place where you can find quality used cars from trusted dealers rated by you, and where you can fund your car with finance to fit your budget. It's feel-good car buying, all in one place.
We can't make the weekend come any quicker. We can't make the kettle boil any faster. And sorry, we can't speed up the traffic in Sutton Coldfield. But we can speed up the way you submit an energy meter reading. The British Gas app lets you book an engineer, as well as claim rewards and manage your accounts all within minutes. So you can spend less time running your home and more time enjoying it. Download the British Gas app today.
At Jet2.com, we love flying you to new places, like Preveza, with its beautiful Parga area and Lefkas Island, or Zadar, set along the dreamy Dalmatian coast. Book now and discover somewhere new for summer 2020. Jet2.com, friendly low fares.
Nurses like you love the RCNI Nursing Careers and Jobs Fair. Here's why.
It's an easy way to get your CPD hours.
There are loads of job opportunities on the day.
The free workshops are great for learning something new.
It's an event just for us. The RCNI Nursing Careers and Jobs Fair. Coming to London on the 17th and 18th of September. Register now for free entry. Search RCNI events.
Strength and things. Strength and things. Strength and things. Strings and things. Strings and things and strings, strings, strings and things. Strings, strings, strings and things. Strings, strings, strings and things. Strings and.
Now there's a whole range of strings and things called strings and things, including cheese strings, yollies, and new cheese shapes. Find them all in the cheese and yogurt aisle.
Strings and things.
Time now for a CNBC News Update with Sue Herrera. Sue.
Hello again, Morgan. Hello, everyone. Here's what's happening at this hour. The Trump administration is removing an Obama-era regulation that shielded many wetlands and streams from pollution, but it was opposed by developers and farmers who said it hurt economic development. Environmentalists say the move will leave millions of Americans with less safe drinking water. The National Transportation Safety Board says all 6 crew members were asleep when a fire broke out in a scuba diving boat off the coast of California, killing 34 people. The report comes a day after divers recovered the remains of the last missing victim. In its annual study of the cost of car ownership, AAA says the average American is spending about 5% more than last year, driven mostly by a 24% spike in financing costs. The study finds, on average, people are spending $773 per month on new vehicles. And Hillary Clinton visiting an art exhibit in Venice, Italy that featured copies of all 40,000 of her controversial emails. She warned Western democracies that the Russians are targeting them. She spent an hour inside the venue walking among the other tourists, some of who recognized her, but others who did not. You are up to date. That's the news update this hour. Wilf, Morgan, I'll send them down to you.
So, thank you very much.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, exactly. DHL just opening its first innovation center in the United States. Frank Holland is there, and he's having a look at DHL's push into automation. Hi, Frank.
Hey there, Wolf. You know, DHL is developing robotics like this that mimic the human hand and can pack e-commerce shipments, as you mentioned, as part of their first U.S. Innovation Center. They're also developing robots like this one that actually follow workers while they're fulfilling your online orders to help make them more efficient. This is all about addressing the labor shortage in logistics. In 2020, 228,000 new logistics workers will be needed to meet industry demand, according to CBRE. That's 26% more new workers than the 5-year industry average. DHL says it expects e-commerce to grow by 25% over the next 5 years. And in order to address that fast growth, it says it's going to put robotics like this in 80% of its U.S. warehouses. Back over to you.
Frank, I think about a company like Honeywell that's working on connected automation. What are the companies that DHL is working with on this? And I guess what is the expectation in terms of this technology for the future? Something like pick and pack, for example, has always been a human led endeavor, and it's sort of seen as the holy grail.
Well, you're exactly right, Morgan. I actually spoke to the CEO of e-commerce, Ken Allen, for DHL. He says in the future, not tomorrow, not next year, but in the future, they're going to have robots that can actually pick and pack overnight. Let's say you want a pair of sneakers or a suit, so that when the human workers show up, they can actually put it right in the truck and deliver it to your door. The company's also working on putting some of their fulfillment centers in urban areas. We know that Amazon's doing something similar in Brooklyn in the New York area, but their focus is in getting their fulfillment centers closer to people and using robotics to really speed up that pick and pack process.
Frank Holland, thank you. Walmart announcing the expansion of its unlimited grocery delivery service earlier today. For $98 a year, users with an order of $30 or more can get free delivery to their homes. Will this be enough for Walmart to come out on top in the grocery delivery wars? For more, let's bring in Bill Simon, former president and CEO of Walmart US, and Jerry Sheldon, vice president of technology at IHL Group. Good afternoon to you both. Bill, I'll start with you. Will this be enough for Walmart to win the delivery wars?
Walmart needed to do this. Their market share in online grocery is substantially higher than anybody else's. It's their competitive advantage in this online battle they're having with Amazon. So this is something that they needed to do, and I think it'll be enough to keep them on top. They have the largest footprint, grocery footprint in the country, and their ability to deliver to almost every zip code with efficiency will be enhanced by their store presence. So yeah, I think it's a good move for them.
Bill, how plausible is it that if they get this right, they could even prevent some of their rivals from trying to move into this space because of the costs that are involved with trying to roll out delivery of fresh goods?
No, I think that's a great point. That's exactly what happened in the physical retail world when Walmart moved into grocery. They went from being a strictly, hard goods retailer that they were when they had their discount stores to having the traffic that's driven by the food business. And that, I think, is what's going to happen in the online grocery world, in the online world as well, with Walmart's advantage in grocery and their ability to get the traffic that comes with the frequency of a grocery purchase that Amazon can't get because they don't have access to the fresh product nationally like Walmart does. So I think it's a really good move, and it's going to be a strategic advantage for them.
Jerry, is this a trend in which all of the major grocery retailers are just going to have to find some sort of way to deliver to consumers? And if so, what is the role that technology will play in enabling that?
Well, I think you absolutely, if you're a grocer, you have to be in the home delivery business. If you look at very, very large retailers, they're either doing that on their own, again, such as Walmart, or they're acquiring assets to be able to provide that service to consumers. If you start looking at lower revenue retailers, lower revenue grocers, I think we're more likely to see third-party services be the primary avenue for them to be able to provide that service to consumers.
Jerry, where are the likes of Kroger and Target in this battle?
Well, I kind of see them as a bit behind. I mean, you go look at Kroger. For their benefit, they actually do spend quite a bit on innovation. They spend quite a bit on IT, and they do a lot of development internally. I view Target as a little bit behind where some of their larger competitors are at, though obviously they did make a very big investment in purchasing Shipt a couple of years ago. I think they spent close to $3 billion doing that. So every retailer is taking kind of a different avenue. Some are developing those assets internally, and others are just looking for outside companies either to outsource those efforts to or to learn from outside sources and develop those assets and capabilities internally.
Bill, this move by Walmart specifically today, do you anticipate that it's going to bring in a different or broader demographic to Walmart, maybe a higher-end consumer than we've seen in the past?
I think it has the potential to. You go look at.
Well, I think that's
Amazon.
Really the key to this.
Bill. Go ahead, Bill.
Okay, yeah, I really think that's the key to this whole play. I think that's the key. If Walmart's able to bring in new customers, and we see that in the top line growth that comes from either new customers or more frequency from their existing customers, it'll be a big win for them. particularly if they can bring in a different demographic. If they're really just shifting their store business to the online channel, it's going to end up costing them money. And I think as we watch this over the next, say, 6 to 12 months, that'll be one of the leading indicators for me.
Well, we certainly will be watching it. Thank you both for joining us today, Bill Simon and Jerry Sheldon.
Thank you.
Up next, filmmaker Tosca Musk discusses the increasingly competitive streaming business. Plus, she will give us some insight into the management style of her brother Elon.
And as we head to break, here's a look at some of the top-performing consumer stocks today. We're back in a couple minutes.
Casa Bacardi is back, bringing a party with an unmissable lineup and tasty rum cocktails to London. With Bacardi's new Sound of Rum crew, featuring live sets from One Asen and P Money, MCing from Harry Pinero, and loads more. The perfect recipe for an epic night out. Casa Bacardi at Box Park Croydon on September 14th. For more info and to get your tickets now, head to boxpark.co.uk. Do what moves you. Over 18s only. Drink aware for the facts.
This one shouldn't take long. Of course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there. And they'd have chained the back wheel. It would have taken me much longer, especially if the chain's off the ground. Makes it harder to cut. This one doesn't even have a lock on the front. So, in the time I've been talking to you, I've nicked it.
Over 9,000 scooters and motorbikes were stolen in London last year. Lock your bike, chain the rear wheel, and cover it to make it harder to steal. Lock, chain, cover. The Met Police.
1 in 4 children believe potatoes grow on trees. 1 in 5 children believe fish fingers are made from chicken. And 1 in 8 adults believe the moon landings didn't happen. People believe all sorts of strange things. Some people believe that insurance companies try to avoid paying claims. But last year, Zurich paid 99% of insurance claims made by their UK customers. Zurich, an insurance company you can believe in. To find out more, visit zurich.co.uk/99.
We could play epic music, or we could speak in an overdramatic tone, or even set off fireworks. But that's just not smarty. Instead, we let our offer do the talking. Right now, you can grab 25% off our unlimited data SIM. That's just $18.75 a month with no speed restrictions, no credit check, and no long contract to tie you in. Now that's smarty. Just search Smarty Mobile and switch today. It's easy. Offer available for a limited time only. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
Looking for a car you can rely on? Take a fresh look at Peugeot, voted JD Power's 2019 most dependable brand in one of the UK's most trusted reliability surveys. Now's the time to put us to the test. Experience one of our award-winning cars and enjoy an exclusive upgrade to Peugeot offer now. Visit our website for full details. Make sure your next car is built with pride. Rediscover Peugeot today. Terms and conditions apply. Offer available until 30th September 2019. For JD Power 2019 award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
Hello, I'm with Boots Hearing Care. If you're straining to hear me above the background noise, you're experiencing what it's like to have hearing loss. If you've experienced this before in a busy restaurant or pub, you should get your hearing checked. A discreet hearing aid can help you follow conversation more easily by filtering out background noise, just like you're experiencing now.
Turn up the things you love with Boots Hearing Care. For a free hearing check, visit bootshearingcare.com. Over 18s only. 1 free hearing check per year.
Closing bell, the battle to gain subscribers continues to be fierce between streaming companies, with AT&T's Warner Media announcing today that it has partnered with filmmaker J.J. Abrams' Bad Robot Pictures, but also forecasting a large drop in subscribers. Meantime, First Look Media, which co-financed the film Spotlight, is planning to launch a new streaming service called Topic and is announcing right here on Closing Bell right now that it will partner with Passionflix, a streaming video service specializing in romance content.
Joining us now for more is Passionflix co-founder and CEO Tosca Musk, Andrew Wilson, COO and CFO of First Look Media. A very good afternoon to you both. Thanks for joining us. Drew, if I start with you, what exactly is Topic? What's going to be on it?
Well, good. Thanks for having us on. Look, we recognize that the media industry is turned upside down and everybody's trying to get into the streaming game. Unless you're Disney or Amazon or Apple or one of the large mass broad players, we think the winning strategy is really having this portfolio of niche channels that we can super serve audiences and then draw them in to have more sticky subscribers who don't churn out, less price sensitive, and also have high levels of engagement. And we think that's a winning strategy for our company. And in doing so, we now have the launch in the Q4 of this year, Topic, which we're excited about. And Topic is going to launch with 400 hours of programming. It centers around the human center of programming, which is socially conscious kind of stuff. The best way to describe it would be kind of like Spotlight, the way people respond to that.
Okay.
And then our second channel, which we're here to announce today, we're very excited about, is the investment we made in Passionflix with Tosca.
Yeah. And Tosca, to that point, I guess tell us a little bit about Passionflix, how it's different than other streaming content that is available out there right now, and why the decision to do this partnership or this deal today.
Well, Passionflix is a streaming platform that focuses specifically on taking best-selling